kind of dive into this mock draft here from Mel Kiper Jr. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I think I always kind of wait for this, right? And there's some people that say, Mel Kiper's fallen off a little bit. I still think he does a really good job, right? Is he wrong? He's been doing it for so long. Yeah, you're going to have a couple of epic swings and misses. That's just the way it is. But I do think it's a good way to kind of gauge where things are at here. And it's impossible, right, to do this. I've never seen a mock draft and then you look back at it on draft night and go, oh, this guy hit this out of the park. It just doesn't happen, and it never will happen, right? You're lucky if you get 5 or 6 picks correct as far as the player when they were picked and the team that selected them. Incredibly difficult, right? But I do think, as I mentioned, it kind of can give you a gauge of where everybody's at. And let's start with the first overall pick in the Las Vegas Raiders, Fernando Mendoza, right? They got their guy. Is he going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback? I'm not going to get carried away and say that, but he is going to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League for a while, right? He's going to play throughout his rookie contract. He's going to get a second contract as well. Fernando Mendoza, he's the real deal. Is he the same caliber of prospect as a Joe Burrow? Absolutely not. And Andrew Luck? No. John Elway? No. We don't need to get carried away. Trevor Lawrence? No. But he is clearly the best player available, and he plays the most important position, and the Raiders are in need of a quarterback, and there is their guy in Fernando Mendoza. And you saw the Raiders brass show up down in South Beach for the national championship. Tom Brady was there, of course, minority owner, has some stake in the Las Vegas Raiders. Johnny Spytek, their GM, he was there. Davis, the owner, he was there. So they were there. They were watching Fernando Mendoza, and I bet they came away from that performance very pleased, because you can see some of the stuff on tape about, okay, he can make the throws, right? Okay, he can, lead his teammates, right? Well, how's he going to do when it's not perfect? How's he going to do when he's getting hit in the face multiple times and he's got a bloody lip? How's he going to do when it's close late in the biggest moments? He didn't flinch. Again, all the box score people out there, if you didn't watch the game, you're like, hey, he didn't do much. Against that defense, that is an NFL front for the Miami Hurricanes. He hung in there. He showed his toughness, and ultimately he elevated his team, and there's that signature moment with him diving across the goal line that should be a statue or up in the facility somewhere. Iconic moment, not just obviously Indiana Hoosier history, but the history of college football there as well. Consensus, number one, Vegas, people are going to be calling. There should be teams that are calling, right? The Jets should be saying every pick that, we got in the Sauce Gardner deal and all the picks we have, we'll give to you for Fernando Mendoza. And if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, you say, thanks for calling, but absolutely not, and you hang up the phone. Other teams should be in that camp as well. Arizona, of course, should be another team calling, hey, what can we do, Johnny Spytek? What can we do, Tom Brady, to get at that number one spot? And if you're the Raiders, you say, appreciate the call, but you can't do anything. You hang up, and you take Fernando Mendoza. And, look, in this division, right, the Wests are so good, both in the NFC and the AFC. We see the NFC, West going to be representing the conference in the Super Bowl once again. And then you look at the AFC side of things, and it's like, hopefully Bo Nix can come back, be healthy. There's a world where they're still playing in the Super Bowl, even without Bo Nix. Sean Payton's tremendous. Harbaugh, Herbert, Mahomes, Reed, like, you need a quarterback, man. You can't have a quote-unquote game manager come in, right? You can't have some guy where it's like, like a Tua, right? I mean, he would absolutely be cooked in that division. You need a bona fide stud at that spot. Not to say Fernando's a guarantee, but it's a guarantee that you should pick him, right? Kind of like Caleb Williams a couple years ago. The skill set obviously is very different, but Williams was the guy where you looked at him and you looked at his talent and you looked at the ceiling in which he had, and you said, yeah, you might like Drake May, right? Obviously a lot of us did. You might like Jaden Daniels, right? But you have to take Caleb Williams at 1. You just have to, right? And that's how I feel. Right, you might like Arvel Reese a lot if you're the Raiders. You probably love him, right? Maybe you say, oh, you know what? I actually like Ty Simpson, and maybe we could trade back in the first round and get him. That's fine, but you can't miss. You can't pass up on a guy like Mendoza. He's going 1. We all know that. 2, Jets. Now, there's debates on, like, are the Jets kicking themselves because Dante Moore is going back to school. I didn't think Dante Moore was good enough to be selected second overall. And my take on that whole situation was that Ty Simpson actually is a better prospect than Dante Moore. I would take, if I'm an NFL team, Ty Simpson over Dante Moore. However, Ty Simpson is not a good enough prospect to go number 2 overall in the draft. I think he's a first rounder, but he's not a top 10, top 15 pick. Feels like the very end of the first round, kind of where I have Ty Simpson here at this point. But Arvel Reese, right? I was saying here on the show for several weeks throughout the college football year that, if Mendoza didn't shine like he did towards the end, right? If he didn't go on this run where he played his best football against the best competition, I think there was a real world where Arvel Reese could go number 1 overall. And there's going to be some people that say, well, he kind of disappeared a little bit down the stretch in these games for Ohio State. Games in which they were losing there, of course, as well. I'm not concerned about that at all. Arvel Reese, that guy's an NFL player. There's a few, and a lot of them played for Ohio State. Sometimes you got to roll the dice, right? The Bengals rolled the dice on Shamar Stewart. Well, there's a couple in the first round. There's only a handful of guys where it's like, this isn't a dice roll. He's going to be good for this team. It's just a matter of if he fits, and that's a position that we need. Arvel Reese is going to be a very, very good NFL player. I'm sure he'll add some weight. They'll ask him to be more of an edge. Opposed to kind of a linebacker, he's going to be phenomenal. If I'm the Jets, I take him at 2. That defense was terrible, right? That's just the most dysfunctional organization in all of football, right? Defensive guy and Aaron Glenn. Usually I'm not big on the one and done. I don't know how you can continue with Aaron Glenn. He showed nothing but incompetence, right? His side of the ball, his defense, their defense was terrible, and they didn't get a single interception the whole year, right? They need a defender. They need a quarterback there as well. But I think Arvel Reese at 2 makes a lot of sense, and that is where Mel Kiper has it. Now, after the top 2, then things can start going in a different way. If you're Arizona, you're trying to get out of this spot, stockpile some picks. I think that could be a potential situation there for the Arizona Cardinals. Do you think about getting crazy and taking a quarterback? I think it's way too early there at that spot. So, at Maui Noah, the tackle for Miami, you're going to see a lot of Hurricanes. You're going to see a lot of Buckeyes throughout this round and definitely in real life throughout this draft come April. But I think Maui Noah is a slam dunk tackle, right? It's not a sexy pick because he's a tackle, right? Arizona's got to figure out their quarterback position. What do they do? Kyler Murray clearly is not their answer. They're not going to go with him this year. They're going to bring in a veteran guy, a Joe Flacco type of guy. Do you try to get Tua? I don't know. They got to figure that out. They're a complete mess. Their owner's he's incompetent, kind of a goofball. It's a very nice way of putting it. It's just kind of a disaster of an organization in Arizona. But I get it. Maui Noah, he's going to be good in the NFL. It's not a sexy pick. He's a good player. That's who Kiper has Arizona taking, which, by the way, good pick for the Bengals as we try to tie this in with the Cincinnati Bengals here. Fernando, great. Quarterback, go. Be a top 10 pick. Tackle, great. I think the Bengals might be on the market to try to find Orlando Brown Jr.'s replacement, right? But they're not going to do that in the first round, or they better not do that in the first round, right? But like third-round tackle, see if he's your left tackle of the future or right tackle if you move Mims over. I'm okay with that. But offensive players going off the board in the top 9, great for Cincinnati. Then at 4, Mel has Tennessee taking David Bailey. And I am very high on Bailey. I have been all year. I think some of these guys, their stock rises based on how they play in the college football playoffs, right? Mendoza. If he would have went out there against Alabama and stunk, we're having a conversation about him potentially not being the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, it didn't happen, right? If Bailey goes out there and no-shows against Oregon in his one game, maybe we're having a different conversation. But I think that performance against Oregon really vaulted David Bailey higher into the first round. I personally would take him over Rueben Bain, which if you just watched the national championship, that seems crazy. So I'm in alignment here with Mel. He's got Tennessee taking a defensive player, David Bailey. Not great for the Cincinnati Bengals there, obviously, but don't be surprised if Tennessee were to think about taking a guy like Carnell Tate or this kid from Arizona State, Tyson. People around the NFL are very, very high on this kid, which it's hard for me to fully understand. He's a great player, but like top 10 pick seems a bit extreme. But what will Saleh do, right? He's a defensive guy coming in as the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. We'll talk about that more in depth in a second. But is he going to want to try to build that defense, or is he going to be like, yo, we need to get Cam Ward, our rookie quarterback, a weapon, right? And that's a difficult decision, obviously, for them to make. We'll see. Wouldn't surprise us at all if Bailey went in that spot, or Rueben Bain. Kind of feels like either one of those guys, which if you're a Bengals fan, you were hoping that one of those guys potentially fell in your lap there as well. At 5, the Giants. Mel has them taken Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State, and there's going to be so many Buckeyes go off the board in the first round in like the top 20, really. You might have like 5 dudes, which is it's just crazy that they couldn't win a single postseason game with the roster they had. But is 5 a bit of a stretch for Carnell Tate? Maybe, but I think to me he's clearly wide receiver 1 in this class. And then if you're John Harbaugh coming in here to New York, let's get Jackson Dart another weapon, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, I believe, is going to be a free agent. You got Neighbors, who's a stud. How's he going to look coming back from the knee? I think, what did Chicago do with Caleb Williams? They said, we're going to get you all the weapons you need, right? And they did that, and they went on a crazy run in the playoffs. I think the Giants need to do that there as well. They could use some defensive help, but they do have some players in peace defensively. They took Carter high, obviously. They got Dexter Lawrence there in the middle holding things down. Thibodeau has proven to be a solid player in the National Football League as well. Basically, all those guys, I think, got hurt as well for the Giants at the end of the year. But they've got some pieces there defensively. I think adding another weapon would be good for them. If Maui Noah is still on the board at 5, I think they entertain that pick there as well. But it wouldn't surprise us at all. Carnell Tate, Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Scadaboo, young guys offensively, try to win like that. Some more veteran guys on defense. I think that could really be an issue in that division, especially with kind of the turmoil there in Philadelphia. The Commanders are in a tough spot, and the Cowboys are with Cowboys. So it kind of feels like the Giants have a real opportunity to make some noise here in year 1 with John Harbaugh. But we'll see what they do at 5. Kiper says Carnell Tate. Moving on, Cleveland is at 6, and, I think it's funny. I've been really hard on Andrew Berry, and rightfully so, right? I think the fact that, he's able to stay and to get rid of Stefanski. We had Jeff Hobson on. I'm sitting here talking to Jeff, dude, Stefanski was one of the few things Cleveland had going right for him. But when you look at this past year's draft, obviously Schlesinger had a heck of a year, the linebacker out of UCLA. You're like, Barry kind of knocked this thing out of the park, right? Their draft. Judkins, of course, gets hurt, but he looked like he was going to be a stud, right, in the NFL. We'll see how he comes back from his injury, but maybe that's what allowed Barry to keep his job just because how good of a draft he had this past year. Well, he's going to need to do it again, and Cleveland, of course, doesn't have the quarterback position figured out. So Mel's got him taking a tackle. Could their offensive line be better? Absolutely. I think Fano is going to be a nice player from Utah, but they're going to continue to be the Cleveland Browns until they get a quarterback in there, right? Is Shedeur the answer? Absolutely not. Is Deshaun Watson the answer? Heck no. And is Dylan Gabriel the answer? No. So they're kind of in purgatory until they figure out that position. And unfortunately for them, they want to take Ty Simpson at 6. Seems too high, so I don't know what they're going to do at that quarterback spot. And you drafted 2 last year. You're going to draft another one, and you got 3 kids in that room with, a weirdo and Deshaun Watson. They're in a tough spot. That quarterback position is not good, and that's why you're seeing some of these coaches not wanting to touch this job at the 10-foot pole. We'll talk about McDaniel in a second, but I think he was in the running to potentially be the guy in Cleveland. And he's like, you know what? I was a head coach in Miami for a couple of years. Let me just go be elite out in L.A. with Herbert and then see if I can't get a job later on. But, that Cleveland job, man, yeah, you got Myles Garrett, but who would want that job? Not me. But that'll be interesting to see what the Browns do at 6. You feel like they're going to go offense, right? And feels like Tate will be off the board by then. Lineman makes a lot of sense. Now at 7, the Washington Commanders. And unfortunately for the Cincinnati Bengals, feels like kind of a lock that they're going to take a defensive player. So Bailey or Bain, whichever one of those guys, maybe Tennessee goes with a weapon as we mentioned. But one of those guys is a lock to go to Washington, right? With Dan Quinn, that defense, they kind of went all in, and that GM really did a poor job there looking back. They have such an old team. They need a young player to come in. All of a sudden, Kingsbury's out. Now Dan Quinn, he was just in the title game. Now he's coaching for his job here this year. So I think Rueben Bain is another one of those players where it's he's going to be a really good NFL player. Hall of Famer? I don't know. Don't have to get carried away. All-Pro, don't have to get carried away. But he's going to start on an NFL team, and he's going to have some production. Right, and we saw that. Just the way he was playing in the championship game against Indiana. Those boys from Miami made that offensive line for Indiana look subpar, which is crazy because it's the best offensive line in college football. So those dudes for the Hurricanes are the real deal. Bain's certainly one of them. And now, as I sit here and process this, especially after the strong performances that Bain and Bailey had in the college football playoff, it's hard to imagine either one of those guys being available at number 10. Not great for the Cincinnati Bengals. Not great. At 8, we got the New Orleans Saints. Jordan Tyson. That's the kid from Arizona State. I've watched him a few times, and he's very, very talented. I understand that. Top 10 pick seems a bit extreme. New Orleans is apparently in a good spot. A lot of us laughed at him when they took Shuck and was like, oh, he's going to be our guy here. I certainly did. Hand up. Kellen Moore was doing a great job with him, and they're absolutely rolling with Tyler Shuck next year. And, a lot of people thought maybe Olave would be traded. They made the right call there in New Orleans to keep a hold on him. I didn't really get the Shaheed thing because they just got fleeced by John Schneider, but now they need, another receiver to pair with Olave. They got some, decisions to make whether they're going to extend Olave or not. And if you're New Orleans, it's hard. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but you feel like, we got a quarterback here that we can win with. I would pay Olave and then get him another weapon. And, if Tate's off the board, I guess the consensus here is that Tyson's the next best guy. I don't know. That seems kind of aggressive to me. I think, it's combine and we see some interviews and dive into the tape a little bit more. We're going to find out some more information there on Jordan Tyson. But, I take the best receiver available and see what you can't do with Tyler Shuck in a terrible division. So that's who Mel has the Saints taken at 8. At 9, and this is where I get worried, right? I think, and, again, people read on off the bench, it's like, why are you so worried about the Chiefs? What's the Chiefs, right? That is a well-run operation. That is a well-oiled machine. They know what they're doing. And the recency bias in the NFL and really just in sports is crazy to me because now it's like, the Chiefs, they stink. Like, what are we doing? They meant 6 wins. Chiefs stink. This is a team that's went to the Super Bowl like every year for the past however many years, right? It's an elite operation with an elite head coach and an elite quarterback, right? Mahomes, did he have a down year before he got hurt? Yes. All right, you're silly if you're going to bank on that happening again. I really believe that. I think Mahomes is going to come back and he's going to have that chip on his shoulder. Think about that. He hasn't really been able to operate with that kind of chip since, winning their first Super Bowl, right? Because everyone's just kind of crowned him as the best player and, you don't want to play Mahomes, especially in the postseason. Now they have 6 wins, fall from grace. People are starting to count him out. Like, Mahomes is going to be great when he comes back. Is he going to be available for week 1? I don't know. We'll see. But you know that they're going to hit this pick out of the park. Like, they're not going to mess this up. Brett Veach is not going to mess up this pick. Now, they need some help offensively, right? I think they could use another offensive lineman, certainly, and a big popular name that a lot of people are connecting to the Kansas City Chiefs that makes a lot of sense. That's who Mel Kiper has been picking at 9, is Jeremiah Love. Right? Jeremiah Love, to me, is the 3rd best player in this draft behind Mendoza and Arvel Reese. Now, he plays running back. And, we saw Genty go really early to Vegas. How did that work out? Not well. I'm not out on Genty, but when you take a running back that high, and if you're picking that high, chances are your offensive line is not very good. And when you have a running back behind a bad offensive line, it doesn't look good at all. Right, and that's what Vegas found themselves in last year. Now you're kind of sitting there like, did we miss on this pick? Did we not? I don't know. 9 for the Chiefs doesn't seem too high for a running back because I think, run game. I know Reed wants to drop back and throw the football, but offensively they know what they're doing, right? And we saw what Pacheco was able to do, right? And Kareem Hunt there as well. Both those guys, by the way, free agents. And Pacheco, heck of a pick, heck of a run, a couple of world titles. But do you think about giving him another contract? He had the injuries and seemingly didn't look the same this year. So I don't know. I think Jeremiah Love could be, Bugs Bunny for this offense in Kansas City, kind of getting it back to, where it was several years ago. So it seems like a lock for them. But are they sitting here going, Caleb Downs just is a can't miss guy, right? We need to take Caleb Downs here in the spot, despite not having safety as a huge need. I don't know. I'm a little concerned about that. Because, look, there's anti-Ohio State people out there that are like, Caleb Downs, what's so great? No. Caleb Downs is unbelievable, right? And if he gets to 10, I would honestly be surprised if he gets to 10, right? But we'll see. We'll see what Kansas City does at 9. That's something you're sweating until you hear that pick for Kansas City, right? Because you're just worried and scared out of your mind that they're going to take your guy. Right, and that's going to be a conversation topic we'll continue to have here on the show. At 10, Mel Kiper has Cincinnati selecting Caleb Downs, which I don't think, if the Bengals take Caleb Downs, I don't think I will have ever been that excited about a draft pick, honestly, right? Because I'll be up front with you, when the Bengals drafted Burrow, I wasn't like, we're going to the Super Bowl, right? And then once I saw him play for the Bengals in the NFL, I was like, we're going to the Super Bowl. But it took a second, right? Jamar obviously was great, excited about that, but that was kind of a no-brainer, right? I know there was the conversation about the lineman, Penei Sewell or Jamar, but here at this spot, those are 2 great picks. But beyond that, in my time as a Bengals fan, I was hyped when they got A.J. McCarron. I thought that was pretty sweet. But if they get Caleb Downs, man, that would be best case scenario, just overwhelmed with joy, right? Like popping champagne type stuff, like that type of a pick. And people might think that's getting carried away. It's not, right? Caleb Downs is that guy, and he would be that guy for Al Golden and this Bengals defense. And, we've talked about it at length. He's got no weakness to his game. He's tough. He's physical. He's smart. He can lead, right? Caleb Downs could come in and be the leader of this defense immediately. What has Duke Tobin been? Well, that was like one of my big takeaways from Tobin when he spoke. Is like, we need some leaders on defense, right? Well, there's your leader right there. He'd come in as rookie and lead this thing, right? And I've been hard on Jordan Battle, and I have my questions on Jordan Battle. Will you put a stud like Caleb Downs next to him? And that might bring the best out of Jordan Battle, right? I get he's a safety. There hasn't been a safety taken in the top 10 since Jamal Adams in the common draft era, right? I get that's kind of unprecedented. But he's not just a safety. He is a football player. Against the run, against the pass, you can blitz him. Good ball skills. He's had a couple of interceptions every single year collegiately. He's played in big-time moments, right? Is a guy that you want. He's a mature dude, right? That's what you want in your first-round pick, not a guy like Shamar Stewart who's going to sound like a goofball when he's addressing the media and getting in beef with the organization, not signing his contract. Just ridiculous stuff. Caleb Downs is going to come in here and be an adult, right, immediately. And this would be best case scenario for the Cincinnati Bengals. And it's something that's going to, drive a lot of us crazy as we, the anticipation of this pick. But to be very clear, Bain and, Bailey and these guys are great. If Downs is there at 10, you take him. And if you're worried and you're concerned about Kansas City taking him, I would give up something significant just to move up one spot to take him. I would, right? If you're sitting there and Downs is available at number 9 and you're like, goodness gracious, Bailey and Bain are off the board, we might need to call Kansas City and just make sure that we get him. I would give up compensation just to move up one spot. I absolutely would. We'll see. That's who Kiper has the Bengals taken, and that would be completely awesome if that were the case. Now, there's some other names that need to be talked about. There's really only 2 names that I think I would be really frustrated if Cincinnati took at number 10. Again, if they took an offensive player, I would be shocked. So I'm going to act like that's not even possible, right? Which maybe I'm silly. We've got some people out there in the Bengals community that are floating around taking a receiver. I don't know if people are joking or what, but that it can't happen, right? It can't happen, right? Carnell Tate's a really good player, but come on, stop. And I think he'll be gone by then, but stop. And those 2 players I don't want are Peter Woods from Clemson. The Bengals have an infatuation with that university. They have some type of connection from their scouting people or their staff to the people over at Clemson. And the Clemson operation, Dabo Swinney gets a lot of crap. I've always, I'm not going to say I'm a Dabo guy. I always supported him. It was easier to do it, obviously, when they were winning. But his, this past year for Dabo is disastrous stuff for Dabo Swinney. And, I have some belief that I'll be able to get it figured out, but he's got to adjust a little bit to the new day and age of college football. He's got to use the portal more, and he's got to get the boosters to help him out so they can go pay some better players. He's got to figure out his coordinators. He's kind of whiffed on that ever since Venables left, right? And they're losing offensive play callers there as well. The Garrett Riley situation, that never worked out with Clemson, so he's got a lot of work to do. But, that in and of itself is a kind of a turnoff, right? Like, you just did it with Barrett Carter, Miles Murphy, okay, you did it. The AT was great, but they just have this infatuation for this university, and I'm ready to go in a different direction because overall, the overarching view is it ain't working, right? And number 2, I don't think the production is there. We talked about Clemson. There was so many people, so many smart people picking Clemson to win the national title, and they were eliminated from that like 3 weeks into the season, right? That defense was loaded. There was no reason why they shouldn't have been better on that side of the ball. And Peter Woods should have been better this year, right? Coming in, the traits that he had, some of the production that he thought he was going to build off of these past few years, he didn't do that, right? He's not a top 10 pick, so don't take him at number 10. That would drive me nuts. And the other one's Keldrick Falk, right, from Auburn. Fine player. Didn't see enough from him, right? I'm done with this, the ceiling's high and maybe we can coach him up. No, you can't. Right? And if you do, it takes way too long, right? Number 10 pick. It's frustrating, and I get fired up about this because I was saying the same darn thing last year at the number 7 or 17 spot, and now we're saying it again here at the number 10 spot. It's like, take the best player available and take the guy that can come out on the field and produce right away. And that's all the Buckeyes, by the way, that are going to get drafted. Any one of them. They're ready to go right here, right now. Bengals need to do that at number 10. So I'm out on Falk. I'm out on Peter Woods. I'm out on anybody offensively. Other than that, I've got other options, right? We mentioned, Bain, Bailey. If those guys are there, Arvel Reese somehow falls to 10, yes, take him. Downs, take him. right? Sonny Styles. If you're in a spot where Bain, Bailey, and Downs are all gone, I'm willing to take Sonny at 10. That might be a little bit of a reach, right? He might not be a top 10 pick. Mel's got him at 12 to Dallas. I think some people would say more than the 15 to 20 range. But Sonny Styles is going to come in and be a really good player in the NFL at linebacker. That's what you need. That position was horrible for you last year, right? And if you pair him with a Demetrius Knight, maybe that can turn around a little bit. If all your guys are gone, yes, I would look at taking, Sonny Styles there at 10. And look, if all those guys are gone and you have to go corner, right, I would take one of these corners of McCoy or Delane over a guy like Falk or Peter Woods. I really would, right? And you might be saying that's crazy. You got Dax Hill. You got DJ Turner. You could use another corner. You really could, right? And we'll see. As far as defensive tackles go, there's some other guys that you could potentially bring in. We kind of just roll through this list here. He's got McCoy, the corner I just mentioned, going 13, right? 14, he's got Mekhi Lemon going to Baltimore, which I didn't think Mekhi Lemon was the best receiver on his team. Not to disrespect him. He won the Blitnikoff, but I thought Lane is a better receiver. And Lemon at 14 of Baltimore seems a bit of a reach. Kenyon Sadiq's obviously huge. He's got him going to Tampa at 15, the tight end from Oregon. He's got Simpson going 16 to the Jets, which if you're the Jets, I don't think you can take a quarterback at 2. If Simpson is there at 16, do you take him? Might be on to something a little bit there. But, again, it's like you put Mendoza in New York. You put Joe Burrow in New York, and it's like, probably still not going to look very good because it's just such a dumpster fire and inept organization. But he's got Simpson going 16, 17, the guard from Penn State, 18, Delane, who I mentioned. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL, corner out of LSU. C.J. Allen, of course, I would take C.J. Allen over Falk and Peter Woods. Right, C.J. Allen, linebacker from Georgia. He can come in. He can play. Right, he played really well down the stretch for the Bulldogs this past year. And then he's got Mesidor, the interior. I guess he is an edge too as well from Miami, which I don't know if Mesidor's a first rounder. He's a great player. I think some teams will get worried that he's a little bit older, 25 years of age, I think. Great player, played great in the playoffs, but he's got him going 20 to Dallas. I would entertain that, I guess. Like the older thing, maybe that's good, right? Maybe he come in and he can be good, right? But that was your mindset when you picked Demetrius Knight. Oh, he's played a lot of football. He's older. He's mature. That didn't work out either. So we'll see. He's got Peter Woods going 22, the Chargers. I think that's more where Woods belongs. I would even venture to say maybe like 25 to 32, somewhere at the end of the first round. But if you take him at 10, man, that is not good. Not good at all. And then the other Clemson corner, Avion Terrell, his brother, of course, great player in the league. Got him going 23 to Philly. McCoy, much rather have him, and Delane, much rather have those two guys at corner. He's got Zachariah Branch going to Cleveland at 24, which that could be an interesting fit there. K-Mac going to Chicago. I think that's the first interior defensive lineman he has. You want to go get Caden McDonald at 10? I would do that, right, before I would take some of the other guys I just mentioned. Right, he didn't really. It took him a while to kind of get in and get a ton of playing time, but he was great for Ohio State. He's ready to come in and play quality football for you right now. I think that could shore up your interior. I think you're going to look to address that in free agency there as well. But does Caden McDonald come in and immediately give you an upgrade over Chris Jenkins or McKinley Jackson? Yes, absolutely, he does. And as far as defensive players go, as we just kind of scroll through this the rest of the way, nobody else really sticks out. Cassius Howe, I think they've got him going 31 in the Patriots, the A&M outside linebacker. I would rather have him than a Peter Woods or a Keldrick Falk, if I'm being completely honest there as well. But do you want to take back-to-back edge rushers from Texas A&M? No, you don't. And then Caleb Banks, the DT from Florida, is another option there as well that you could go to. So there's, I get if you're in a situation where Bain, Bailey, Downs are all off the board, and of course, assuming Reese is off the board as well, you're kind of like, golly, like that stings a little bit. But I still think there are some safer guys to go to. If those guys are off the board, don't panic. Sonny Styles, bring him, take him at 10, right? Don't panic in that situation if you're the Bengals, but you better not take a Peter Woods or one of these guys that has some high ceiling or whatever. But we'll spend more time, of course, talking about the draft as we progress. But wanted to spend some time today. Great, Bengals. There's a lot of mock drafts, and say what you want about Kiper. Nobody's perfect. None of these people are. But the fact that he thinks that Downs could fall to 10 and that Cincinnati would be there to take him, that is great news. Again, you get Caleb Downs at number 10, full-on celebration. if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan or certainly a member of the organization there as well.